Hey, hola, bon dia. Carl Munson here on the Good Morning Portugal show and podcast. And you can see on the screen with me my dear friend, Michael Heron in Lisboa. And he's here to talk about, well, mainly to do a business Q&A, anything to do with starting a business in Portugal. And foolishly, we've only got half an hour to do this because I think there may be lots of questions. And even if there aren't, we've got lots of things we could talk about. There's so much going on in the world, as we were saying before we came on air. Welcome, Michael. Great to see you again. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing this Q&A.
My pleasure, bon dia. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It's been a little while. Before now, we've talked about the World Cup. We've talked about starting a new life in Portugal. We've talked about Brexit, all the big things. And, you know, we're not short of information or content today either. There's another big thing in the world, apparently, at the moment.
Apparently.
There is the coronavirus phenomenon. And I'm up country. We live very different lives. It's very possible, I think, to live very different lives in Portugal and almost be in different worlds, right? You are the cosmopolitan elite, and I am a country bumpkin in central Portugal. Give me a sense of the temperature and flavour of life in Lisbon at the moment with the coronavirus. I heard the coronavirus did go to Lisbon, but it couldn't find anywhere to stay. Is that still?
There's been a few cases, but it sounds like they're all very connected. So it's all people who have known each other, which is great because it means it's been well contained. I think in Lisbon there's been a couple of cases, but it's been very quiet so far. So fingers crossed we don't have a situation like in the UK where I think there's been a lot more cases. But yeah, so far in Portugal it seems to be fairly quiet, which is good.
Yeah, and the atmosphere, because the way I feel about this, and it is a controversial subject, isn't it? There is such a range of views. These are such polar and opinionated times. So you only have to say keywords there's a range of keywords who just get people started. Coronavirus is now one of them. And it ranges from like it's just flu, man up. Oh, it's just like man flu, don't worry about it. And then, quick, go out and buy every toilet roll and paracetamol packet you can find. And we'll be somewhere along that spectrum. But what I think we're dealing with is the phenomenon of it. It's not just the virus anymore. It's like the effect that it is having on our societies and cultures around the world. And because we're all so connected, we can see that unfolding before our eyes. Is there an atmosphere about it in Lisbon? What are people saying there?
Not really, to be honest. I haven't really spoken to a lot of people about it, if I'm honest. But from what I can gather, I mean, none of my clients have, forced people to work from home. There's been no sort of quarantining in that kind of sense. It looks like business and life as usual, 100%. But then if you look at the newspaper or the media, then maybe you see a bit more drama. But certainly in Portugal, I haven't really noticed there's a lot going on about it, which is good.
Okay, fair enough.
Haven't seen any panic buying in the supermarkets or anything.
Oh, excellent. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's good.
I'm glad to hear that. And I guess it's a reflection of the sort of stoic nature and practical nature of the Portuguese people, right?
Yeah, I mean, I remember there was a petrol crisis a few months ago because the transport guys, the drivers, went on strike, and a lot of people were panic buying petrol. So there is a tendency anywhere, as human nature, right? We panic and we need to go and buy stuff, and that definitely happened here with petrol. But you're right. I think, and it was like that in the UK, wasn't it? Before things got out of hand, I sort of sensed the attitude of people just sort of getting on with it. And then as the media sort of stoked up the narrative of fear, then all of a sudden people, in human nature, people panic and go and buy more than they need. But I think it's always been like that. I was talking to my father about it the other day. He used to live in Scotland many years ago. And he remembers there was a sugar shortage, or rumour of a sugar shortage, and the Scots were going out to panic buy sugar. And he was like, well, who needs more than 2 kilograms of sugar at home? But, like our Portuguese brothers and sisters, the Scots have a sweet tooth, don't they? So.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes, of course. And, maybe that's sort of characteristic Portuguese is that, that's what I love about being here. It's the kind of laid back atmosphere, certainly less intense in the UK. And maybe it's a matter of like panic buying tomorrow or later. We'll just you have a laid back approach to panic buying. We'll do it. We'll do it when it feels right.
Yeah, exactly.
We couldn't not talk about coronavirus, but that's probably enough of that for now.
Yes.
There's another thing we can't not talk about. We're two Brits, and forgive us, everybody else, because apparently there are other countries available. But from the like a Lisboeta Portuguese perspective, how are you feeling the impact of Brexit? And is it the same thing? Is it just a bit of a damp squib?
Well, to be honest, for me personally, it's been interesting because I've been noticing a lot of inquiries from UK businesses that are looking at Portugal as an alternative to their operations. So from my point of view, it's been quite positive, and I'm not affected by it really, and because I've been here for over 5 years now, so I'm a permanent resident, and I'll be applying for Portuguese nationality this year. So I've tuned out of it, to be honest. I was so bored of it. I'm so bored of it. Yeah, you know what it's like, right? So I've kind of just tuned out from what's been happening. But from my personal point of view, from a business point of view, it's been really positive because, like I said, especially if you're a technology company and you've got clients in the UK, if you come to Portugal, it's perfect because same time zone as the UK. It's a very short flight. Operational costs are lower here. You can apply for a tech visa, and you can basically bring your entire workforce over, and you can bring people from anywhere in the world, and you can bypass the CEF and do it very quickly. So there are certain companies in certain sectors that they really should think about Portugal as an alternative if they're worried about the impact that Brexit could have on their business. But it is a shame culturally because I think there'll be a lot of young people that won't have the opportunity to study and work abroad from the UK, and likewise now with the really strict restrictions on foreign workers being able to come and live and work in the UK, it's going to be more difficult. So it's a real shame. But onwards and upwards, we have to get on with it, right? We can't worry about things in life that we can't control. So that's my attitude.
That's a spirit. That's a very sort of Portuguese and British sentiment, I think.
Yes,
Let's get on
definitely,
with it. Absolutely. Get on with it. Yeah, Maria Costa, good morning to you. Hi, good morning, she says to us. Thank you for doing this. Absolute pleasure. It's always great for me to talk to Michael, and he'll have some great insight, as he was alluding to there. There are so many good reasons, I think, to come to Portugal. To live and to start a business. The key word there, I think, was probably golden visa, right? About how advantageous it is to start a business and how that can basically guarantee you residency. Yeah.
Well, the golden visa is a bit different. It's if you're a non-EU national and you want to guarantee residency in Portugal, then you can apply for a golden visa, and they've changed the amount that you need to invest. So, for example, the most common transaction is you buy property, and it used to be 500,000 euros was the minimum. I think now it's 350,000 if it's in certain parts of the country, or if you're willing to invest a certain amount to renovate an older property.
Yes,
it's 350,000. So, and there are other ways that you can get a golden visa, but the real estate purchase is the most common one. So that's obviously one side of it. But for now, until November, anyone can still from the UK or from the UK can still come here, providing they get everything done before November. So there's still time. It's a very easy process, as we both know because we've been through it before. Providing you have somewhere that you can call home and register with your address, you can get everything done quite easily. So that's a positive thing. Yeah.
We have got a couple of questions lined up. Normally how we start the show is to look at the weather, which again is just so British, isn't it? But let's just do the reason I'm going to suggest we do that is because it's another really good reason to be in Portugal. I understand, where we're from, the picture is pretty grim at the moment, with flooding and cold weather and so on. And oh, my weather! Oh, yes, it is. It's beginning. It's slowly loading. It's a sort of sluggish picture this morning. But we've got our man Michael here in Lisboa this morning. What's the weather like there this morning on the 6th of March? I'd expect it to be pretty chilly where I'm from. What's it like in Portugal this morning?
In Lisbon this morning? Very sunny, blue sky, not a cloud in the sky. A bit chilly, about 12 degrees this morning. but it's going to get warmer later today. But I was looking next week; it's going to be 22 degrees on Wednesday, I think. So it's starting to warm up. Yeah, but we've now got the rain to look forward to, which always happens in March and April. There will just be a month or two of rain, and we need it, right? We absolutely need it, so we can't complain about it.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
And looking across the country, Porto at the moment, 10 degrees, bit cloudy, but 14 to look forward to. Very mild. Aveiro similar, 14-degree high. Lovely weekend. Look, down in the south, wow. You know, if you live in Lisbon, you just catch the high-speed train down to the Algarve or Alentejo. That's what you got to look forward to. 18 degrees. And next week, look at those temperatures for next week in March. Even Braga looking very mild, on Bragança, mild temperatures up there. Castelo Branco over in the kind of northeast of the country, 15-degree high today. Coimbra, the educational epicenter of Portugal, 14-degree high, 20-degree weekend, and lots of sun to look forward to next weekend. Évora, that can get really hot there. 16 degrees later on today is a possible high. Faro, as you might expect, very comfortable, 19 degrees today and tomorrow. Guarda, bit chilly. That's to be expected, I think. Porto Alegre, 14 degrees high today, 18 degrees tomorrow. But you get the picture. You know, such comfortable weather in this wonderful country. 300 days of sunshine, they say, don't they?
That's it. That's it.
Do you think is that true in your experience?
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Okay, so Lisbon.
Yeah. And the thing that always like I always appreciate so much is just the light, how bright it is, especially at this time of year. And I think we may have spoken about this before, but someone told me that a lot of car adverts are filmed here because of the light, because how good the light is for on camera.
I didn't know that. Right.
Yeah, apparently so. And sometimes if you watch a car advert, you'll see the 25 Abril bridge like in the background, like they've forgotten to edit it out. So you can see it there. Yeah. I've noticed that with a couple of adverts, or maybe they've left it in on purpose. I don't know, but I've noticed that.
It's an iconic, attractive feature to have in any advert, I think.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing to sort of focus on is I don't think you'll find anywhere in Europe with the weather we have here. Not because it's always sunny, but because it's so mild throughout the year. Very rarely does it get below sort of 10 degrees, and very rarely does it get above 27. So you just have this wonderful period of the year where it's constantly mild, not too cold, not too hot, lovely breeze, cold breeze from the Atlantic when it's really hot that just makes it seem very, very pleasant. And then at night, the temperature always drops as well. So, we could talk about the weather all day, right? But I think it's important to talk about it because it's such an attractive feature of Portugal. Yeah.
Yes.
And it affects I bet you've changed as a person since you moved here. I'm sure you have. I'm sure you're more positive, if that's even possible, because you're a positive guy. But I'm sure you've changed.
Well, I have to admit that I was a bit surprised about the winter, and that's something to bear in mind as well. Because my first experience was Tamar and Lisbon, and it is very much the weather you describe. But if you go up north, you do get these greater seasonal variations. And my kind of honeymoon period was brought to an abrupt end with cold and damp. And, that's in many ways, I thought, I've been missold. And then I thought, hold on a minute, Munson, you've just been an idiot, because basically that's what happens on a certain latitude. A really great thing I heard the other day was that Portugal is a cool country, in every sense of the word, I think, but with a hot sun. And there are certain parts of this country where you sense that, it does cool down, but then when the sun comes, that's what's so beautiful. When you feel the sun on your back and you see those blue skies that you talked about, that is just such a glorious thing here. But yeah, further up north, that people need to be aware of that, is that it does get much, much cooler. And
a lot hotter as well in the interior. It's really, really hot.
When it gets hot,
you're
really
further
hot.
away from the coast. It's really hot.
Yes, true. So be careful with that. I think it's pretty safe in Lisbon, to be fair, what sort of weather you can get. And that's why it's such a reliable destination for tourists. But around the rest of the country, check it out. Spend some time there or talk to locals if you're thinking of settling somewhere. Don't assume that the weather in Lisbon is the same everywhere in Portugal. It would be my suggestion. Maria's saying it's a very sunny. This is lovely. We're getting people who are watching giving their weather report as well. Very sunny, 13 degrees in Tamar. Tamar is such a lovely city. And thanks, Maria. Well, let's start with a question from Maria. I'm interested in mentoring groups or business associations, or somewhere to turn to where I can ask real life nitty-gritty questions about various businesses that I'm interested in. Kind of like a Reddit sub. Does this culture exist in Portugal? Like a business subculture, groups of that kind. Are you familiar with anything like that, Michael?
No, not really. I didn't really understand the question, to be honest. What was Maria? What was Maria
Give us
asking?
a bit more background on that, Maria. I think it's probably like meetups to do with business.
Okay, sort of networking kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. There's a great startup culture in Lisbon, of course, and you're part of that scene. Tell us about how much it's humming in Lisbon at the moment. Obviously, home of Web Summit for one thing.
Yes. Well, it's amazing how much the culture has changed, because I arrived here in 2014, and at the time there was talk of Lisbon wanting to be the new Silicon Valley in Europe, which at the time I just laughed at it. I thought it's never going to happen. And then they managed to get the Web Summit, which is the biggest sort of tech event, IT event in the world, where 70,000 people come here every November, and they secured that for the first time in 2015, I think. And then subsequently, they've got it now for the next 10 years. And that's obviously had a huge impact. But there is a very vibrant startup scene here, and a really solid community. And it's been amazing just to see how much that has grown. I think before you had to look for it, but now it's just everywhere. It's really, really, really prevalent. And sort of just to talk a bit more about what Maria was asking, there are definitely a lot of events that you can go to where you can network and meet business owners. It's very open, the culture here. It's not like a closed community at all. So it's easy to meet people and talk to people and ask questions. And there's lots of different ways to do that.
Yeah, and it does exist outside of Lisbon, of course, as well.
Yes, absolutely.
I think the incubator startup culture is good across the country now. And there has been this, I think you always get this, don't you, with the kind of sibling cities. They see what's going on in the capital and they think, yeah, and, I'm not going to the capital. Porto, great example. It's like, we're not going there. We'll start our own things in Porto. And, in Matosinhos, I think that's the startup hub in Porto. Revolut have just headquartered themselves there. I think that's really exciting news. And there's amazing stuff going on in Porto, in Aveiro, where I work with OurNet, new social media project. There's an incredible incubator connected with the university, and people really are trying to start up these networking initiatives and the business, the enterprise culture. I suppose you'd call it that, wouldn't you? And I think Portugal generally is embracing that spirit.
Definitely, and the first incubator I visited was actually in Braga.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, and that was in 2014, I think. Wow. And I was really impressed. I was really impressed with the companies there. Someone said to me once, when you're talking to startups, there's two things you need to look at. One is it's like the jockey and the horse analogy. One is the people behind the idea, like can they execute the idea, and then the idea itself, like is it viable? Will it work? Will it make money? Will it be a success? And I was really impressed by a lot of the companies there, and subsequently a few of them have gone on to be really successful. And really young teams, and you realize, like you've noticed in Aveiro, when you go to other parts of the country outside of Lisbon, even outside of Porto as well, you see a lot of talent, really good universities, and some really interesting projects that have been happening.
Yeah, and an embracing of the fail fast culture as well here. I think people aren't expecting to sort of get it right or succeed straight away, because that's unrealistic in business and certainly in startup businesses. And I think that's been embraced here. I think there's a real enthusiasm. I think there's a real openness, a positivity about it, and people will make very quick introductions. That's what I've noticed here. People are very forthcoming with their address books and their contact books, and say, you've got to speak to so and so, you've got to speak to so and so. And I think that's an amazing thing. And this idea that, like, just try it, let's see how we can get to making this idea work or not work, or seeing if it's going to fail or succeed really quickly. And there's that vibe, there's that positivity around that, which I've really been impressed by.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's really exciting. And you're right, there is definitely a culture now where young entrepreneurs aren't afraid just to try.
Yeah.
And I think with a lot of business owners that you meet, quite often the first ideas that they've had, haven't worked, or for one reason or another, timing, it just hasn't worked. But it doesn't mean you don't start again, try again, and often you learn more from the mistakes that you make.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm from Canada, says Maria, where there's lots of help and support for individuals starting small businesses, whether with some funds, some practical help. That's a good question, or a good a bit of feedback for us there. Yeah, funding, practical help. You're part of an initiative in Lisbon, of course, that is about helping people get started in Lisbon. Do you want to say some more about that, and what the scene, also the sort of secondary question to that, what the scene is like for funding, whether that be angels or business investment or EU investment? How's that looking at the moment?
Yeah, so the company that I own, called Avonlight, we're a consultancy boutique. We mainly work with professional services firms, so specifically law firms, but we also help anyone that wants to open a business in Portugal. And the process is really, really easy. Since 2005, you can do it in an hour. It's called like on the spot. You can register the company in an hour, providing you pick a name from a pre-approved list. And it costs €360. And then in the same day, you get a business bank account and you're away. You can start trading. So it is very, very quick, very, very easy. And providing you've got a good accountant, then you've got nothing to worry about, really. In terms of funding, I would say it depends how much and what your business is. The banks don't tend to be very forthcoming until you have an established business. The culture here is still not quite at that stage. It has improved in terms of funding available for businesses. It has improved. There are some options out there, but it's still not quite as much as there could be available. And then the only other thing to bear in mind, if you're coming from outside of Portugal, that the taxes in Portugal are very high.
Yeah,
value-added taxes at 23%. Corporate taxes is quite high, and it's expensive to hire people. It's expensive to employ people. So that's the only thing to bear in mind, that some of those expenses will be higher than you're probably used to in your home country, depending on where you're coming from. So it's really important to have a calculation of what all your sort of operational expenses are going to be before coming here. But in most cases, especially from the UK, it is viable, because just the cost of living is so much lower here. And sometimes it's better not to necessarily consider Lisbon, especially if you're looking to hire young people. Say it's a tech company, then somewhere even like Aveiro would be a really interesting alternative in terms of how much cheaper it would be to rent an office, in terms of salaries. So Portugal isn't just Lisbon and Porto. There are a lot of other cities that you can consider moving to and starting your business from.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, in terms of funding and so on, one company I would recommend is not a professional recommendation, just some people I like and who it's like a signposting thing. It's not a guarantee, but Core Angels are really good. redangels.com. They're doing some really interesting work from an angel investment point of view. And again, like I said before, if they don't know, if they're not interested themselves, they will refer you. That's what I like about the culture here.
Yes.
People are very generous like that, I think.
Yes, and a lot of the co-working spaces that have incubators also can give you access to that funding, and some of them will even give you funding as well if they like your business idea. Yeah. So it's definitely a really good place to start, because you'll then meet people and understand the process they've gone through and the mistakes they've made, so you can learn from them, not make them yourself.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point about tax. It is a eye opener and an eye waterer, the level of taxation. But I have to say, when you live here and you enjoy an amazing quality of life, that's what the tax is for. I live in a fairly rural area. We have an incredible kind of social fabric, I think, and the investment in public art, the investment in public events is really good, and that money has to come from somewhere. And I like this model. I had a different feeling about it in the UK because it didn't feel quite so sort of socially oriented. But here it feels socially oriented. It feels like people, and there will always be complaints about this, obviously, because that's how it rolls between people and government. But I think there is a sense of social responsibility here, and at every level, central government, local government. It's certainly better than where I'm from. And I understand that's how taxation works, and the money has to be raised somewhere. And when you go out in the evening and you go to an event, and the music's free and the vibe's there, and there's a different holiday every month, the money's got to come from somewhere to do that stuff. So yeah,
absolutely. I
pay
think
it.
you end up being ahead here anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right, I've got a specific question from Stephen, who's asked. This is very sector specific. I'm not sure if you'll have experienced this, but you may be able to give some sort of general help on this. How easy is it to set up a mobile catering unit, e.g., a van or similar? Assuming the vehicle is kitted out, I'd need operator's license, permissions, insurances. I guess that's a question of administration and bureaucracy, isn't it? And how to manage what your responsibilities are when doing something of that kind.
Yes, if it's to sell food, which it sounds like it is from what Steve said, then I do know that it is quite tricky to get the appropriate license. From a health and safety point of view, I know that can be an issue. So I don't have a lot of experience of clients in that sector, but I do know people that have opened a restaurant and they've had that issue. It's taken a bit of time, but it's not impossible to do it. It's just worth bearing in mind that there are a few other sort of obstacles that you would need to go through. But yes, absolutely, you can do that.
Yeah, and would you agree, Michael, that ask the questions, don't just do it, because you could find yourself in a lot of trouble and fined and so on. So really, do the work and be prepared for it to take time, which is what you're saying, isn't it? These things do take time, and there are processes to go through. So allow for that, because if you don't, you will be frustrated.
And the authorities will find you, and they will fine you. So it's better just to get everything in order and find out everything that you need to before moving any further.
Yeah, and you can do that, can't you, fairly easily? The way that the society's set up here is that you would go to your camera. I'm guessing. I mean, at the local level, the freguesias, the smaller sort of parish council, town hall. Then there's a higher level sort of town and city. There's the camera to go to. So go there, get your ticket, sit down, practice your Portuguese, practice chilling out, and remember that's why you came here, to have a better quality of life, and don't get eggy because you've got to queue up. That's just how it works.
Exactly.
So you're so if I can get something like a sort of 1, 2, 3 from you, you've told us it's easy to get started, but like, where do you stick your flag in the ground? If you're coming to Portugal, you're already here, you want to start a business. First step, second step, third step. What needs to be done?
Okay, so the first thing you have to do is get a NIF number. That's the most important thing. That basically is a tax number. It's the equivalent of, in the UK, national insurance number. But in Portugal, you need it for anything. So to buy any sort of major purchase, to sign a rental agreement for an apartment or house, you need a NIF. You need a NIF for everything, basically. So that's the first step. You go to your local tax authority and you queue up, get a ticket, and then you get your NIF. You can get it straight away, providing you go with your passport, and get your residency sorted. And then once you've got your residency sorted, then you can register a company, and it's very, very easy. Like I said, it takes an hour. If you go with a good accountant, they'll just do everything for you. But I think it was €360 to do it when I did it 3 years ago. I think it still costs the same thing. I think it's still €360. And it's very, very easy. Very, very easy.
Yeah, and you don't have to start a company even, do you? From my point of view, I've started a business here. I use what used to be called the Green Book.
Recibos Verdes. Yeah, that's right. So if you're just going to be freelancing, then you don't need to register a company, especially in the first year when you won't be liable for any social security contributions. I think then it does get quite expensive to be on Recibos Verdes. I think Recibos Verdes was really sort of designed for a certain level of income as a freelancer, and after you start making more money, then it can become quite expensive from the social security contributions point of view. But it's a great place to start as I said, because in the first year you're exempt from paying social security contributions, and then after that you can register a company if you want to.
Thank you for that tip off. That's a really good reminder to me personally.
Yes.
And to reiterate what you said before as well, get an accountant. You know, get a word of mouth recommendation from someone who's using someone and it's working with them. Because you,
Yes.
like anyway, you hear of horror stories because, you know, professionals vary. I think word of mouth recommendations are good, and you get yourself an accountant who understands the system and who will support you.
Absolutely, that's the most important thing, and I've been very lucky. I've got a very good accountancy firm that deals with all my stuff, and it just gives you peace of mind, knowing that everything's being taken care of, and yeah, it's really important. If you have a good accountant, then everything else is really straightforward.
Yep. Superb. Okay, Michael, thank you so much. How do people get in touch with you? I mean, are you happy to take questions off air subsequently?
Absolutely. If anyone wants to write to me about, if they're thinking about coming to Portugal, starting a business, anything, always happy to chat, no problem at all. So I can be reached at my email address, which is michael@avonlight.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well. So all my contact details are on there, and would welcome anyone who wants to get in touch to talk about Portugal. Always happy to do that.
Brilliant. Avonlight is AVANLIGHT, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Do you want to stay with me and do what's usually the concluding feature, where we look at a casa do dia and the property market in Portugal?